Highland is without normal power, operating on emergency generators. Some say it looks like a MASH unit is operating there in the parking lot. The other hospitals report that they are fully operational and fully staffed. Some say the quake happened during a major shift change, and that helped quite a bit. We haven't talked at all yet about Candlestick Park, and of course that was going to be the big story tonight, the third game of the World Series. Well, at Candlestick Park today, everyone was in place, the players were on the field, and of course the earthquake hit at 5:04. Many of the people in the stands at first thought it was funny, a normal earthquake that we have. It rolls a little and jolts a little and that's it. Well, then they realized how serious it was. Some people say that there was one section that actually opened up about 6 inches and they could see the parking lot. There was a report that 8 to 10-inch cracks were reported throughout the upper deck section of the ballpark, extensive damage to section 51, if you're familiar with Candlestick. And within 2 days, Caltrans predicts that they will have the Bay Bridge opened. But you saw the extent of the damage there, and as Dennis and I have been bringing you that information throughout the evening, it may not be taken care of in 2 days. We won't know yet, but Caltrans says they're going to try to put up a temporary steel girder where you saw the collapse, the top part of the Bay Bridge collapse onto the bottom part, and they're going to try to put a temporary steel girder to make cars pass. They think they'll be able to do that in 2 days, and we don't know at this point if that will actually occur. Dennis?
Okay, quick note from Bart. We're told now that the only line running on the BART system is from Oakland to Concord. The rest of the BART system is shut down tonight.
Offering some temporary housing for those who weren't able to get off the bridge, so they'll be staying on the rock tonight.
As far as other transportation, if you haven't received this word yet, the ferries are running, and presumably they will be running all night and tomorrow. These are both from Marin County and between San Francisco and Oakland. The pickup point in Oakland is at Jack London Square, and in San Francisco, I believe it is the ferry building. So right. There are ways to get across the Bay Bridge, or that. If you normally would drive, there are ways to get across that link between San Francisco and Oakland.
And of course, there's always hope that BART is going to open up and relieve some of the people who...
Andreas fault system in the Santa Cruz Mountains, about 10 miles northeast of Santa Cruz and 20 miles south of San Jose. The Berkeley magnitude is 7 on the Richter scale. There have also been a number of aftershocks, one of which is about magnitude 5 on the Richter scale.
Those aftershocks hit, as I recall, they're about 10 minutes apart.
Well, the biggest one was about a half hour.
And that was how big?
Approximately magnitude 5. We have not had time to go through and determine the magnitude of all of the aftershocks that we've been recording in the last few hours here. The aftershocks are scattering over about a 30-mile range of the San Andreas fault system, roughly north and south of Lake Elsman, where the earthquakes, 2 magnitude 5 earthquakes occurred in the last couple of years in that area.
This earthquake, is this, people are going to say, is this the big one? Is this the area of the San Andreas that might have expected that?
It's a major earthquake, and it's one of the 2 areas in the Bay, 2 fault segments in the Bay Area where the potential is very high for an earthquake in the magnitude 7 range. The first one was the one where the earthquake occurred this evening, and the second one is the northern segment of the Hayward fault zone here in the East Bay.
We were getting reports of major damage in Hollister. How does one explain that, given the epicenter we're talking about?
Well, when you have an earthquake at the magnitude 7 level, or anything over about 6.5, you'll get widespread damage over easily a radius of 50 miles. And Hollister is less than 50 miles away from the Santa Cruz Mountain epicentral region.
Well, in terms of the iffy science of prediction, were you getting, I know you monitor the daily operation.
And just a reminder, President Bush was immediately advised of the situation out here in the Bay Area of the earthquake, and he immediately dispatched an Air Force plane to Frankfurt, Germany to pick up Governor Deukmejian. That's where he was at the time the earthquake hit. And when the earthquake hit in the newsroom, I have to say, I have never experienced one that a quake knocks you off your feet. I was knocked against some cabinets, and a cameraman actually tackled me to the ground because things were just falling out of cabinets and tapes were falling down.
And cabinets were falling over.
Yeah. Dennis, you were on the 2nd floor, right?
I was on the 2nd floor buying a candy bar. And the building started, when it started shaking, I said, oh, another earthquake. And then my feet almost came out from under me. You know, we've all been through this before, but, you know, and for a moment I thought, this is it. You know, I started looking around. I totally expected the building to just come straight down, and that was it. I ended up holding on to the candy machine.
Which wound up 3 feet from where it started.
Yeah. Oh, we both danced across the floor.
It was in the newsroom. It was interesting. You won't find a cooler, perhaps in a way more cynical group than news people. News people have seen it all. Weather people haven't, and I was absolutely petrified holding on to my area, and I was watching the news people, the journalists, and various expressions across the face. None of them panic, I noticed, though. I was the only one.
We don't have time to panic.
You don't have time to panic. You were already starting to, I was going to say starting to write. The fact is that our anchors tonight have been speaking extemporaneously from notes for several hours now, a feat that, if you stop and think about it, is almost incredible. You know, one element that could have made this tragic day even worse would have been foul weather. Rain, for example, would have made the rescue efforts much more difficult. Thankfully, it was a nice day. It was a warm day and a sunny day. And tonight around the greater Bay Area, there's still that 3 or 4 day old full moon out there. The barometer's 30 hundredths inches of mercury. It's holding steady. The temperature is still 67 degrees. That should give you a clue of what we're in for tomorrow.
People out of San Francisco and get them home south in the peninsula. Unfortunately, the last word is there are all kinds of folks hanging out at the train depot. The rail service has yet to be resumed as far as we know, but it is to resume shortly. That should ease things. Meanwhile, Rita couldn't see, but we're told there are all kinds of folks also at the ferry building trying to get on that red and white fleet and get back to Oakland as best they can.
Also, Highway 101 near Candlestick, that was blocked for a while. We're told the traffic is moving there. And Candlestick, of course, the site of Game 3 of the World Series, which up until 5:04 was probably the biggest thing going on in the Bay Area, and right now is probably one of the least important things going on, especially considering the fatalities. The numbers keep coming in, but this time the numbers are actually going down. Tom DeVries was telling us that from Cyprus that half a dozen bodies have been pulled. There are more that they expect to find dead, but they don't think at this point it would be as high as 250. We will continue our coverage of our 7.0 earthquake that struck at 5:04 today. We'll be right back in a moment.
We've talked about aftershocks, and certainly we have felt many tonight. So we'll come back a little bit later and have all that information
all right,
for you.
Thank you, Sus.
Okay.
One thing you can depend on, the postal workers. Neither rain, nor sleet, nor snow, nor dark of night, nor earthquake shall stay these carriers from their appointed rounds. Postal workers should report to work tomorrow. The mail will go through. That's the word. Vice President Quayle, Transportation Secretary Skinner will be here tomorrow to have a tour of the area to see firsthand from the government's highest level what the aftermath is to the earthquake today at 5:04. When?
Another advisory here. Some universities in the Sacramento area want you to know that they will be open. And we're talking about Cal State in Sacramento, and the University of California at Davis will be open. Just to repeat some of the advisories that were being given by the police and emergency services tonight. The word earlier in the evening, of course, was not to use your telephone unless it was an absolute emergency, because the phone lines are jammed. Stay home if you can. The police chief in San Francisco saying don't come into the city tomorrow if you can avoid it, because it's very difficult getting in and out of the city. And of course, at this point, no alcoholic beverages are being sold in the city of San Francisco to try to keep things calm in the city. Conserve water is an advisory coming to us from all over the Bay Area, because we know that several areas, particularly in the South Bay, are not going to have water. So you should store what you have and be very careful. And